Well, hello, everybody, and happy Monday. Welcome to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. I'm Kathy Holmes. I'm glad to be your host, and I'm really glad you joined us today. Today, we're going to talk to a local celebrity here in Nanaimo, or just on the outskirts of Nanaimo, whose name is Mr. Murry McNab, and he's famous for McNab corn maze that come this fall is going to be hopping and crazy. Welcome to the program, Murry. I'm so glad you're here. How are you?
Very good, and thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being a part of this. You are a legend in this town for creating McNab's corn maze. What started the whole process for you and your family?
Well, back in about 2001, I guess we looked into doing something with the vacant land, or was rented out, and we visited a corn maze in Victoria, did a little research online, and decided to start a corn maze the next year. So with a lot of help, the family farm is owned by myself and 5 siblings. A lot of help from family and friends. We got the first corn maze going in 2002.
Wow, so it's been around for I guess 20 years this year, right?
I guess that's right.
Is that the right math? Am I looking in the right
Or
direction?
next year, I don't know. I'd have to
Close, and either way, up and down. Have you really seen a change in the last 20 years from what you initially expected to where you are now?
Yes, last year was a little different because of COVID,
Yeah.
but this year I think it'll be back to normal. The amount of visitors has increased dramatically over the years, as with the size of the corn maze is staying the same, but the pumpkin patch is probably 50 times as big as it was the first year.
Oh yeah, it's massive. I went last year and was gobsmacked at how huge. It's become a family tradition in my home is to go to your location and have some fun and visit and play with the goats. Well, not really play with them. You can't really play with them, but you can have a look at them anyway, for sure. So, when I think about the corn maze, I'm fascinated because I always wonder, like, what prompts people to say, I want to do a corn maze? Are you a person of sci-fi? Did you like, scary movies where people were getting lost in corn mazes, or what brought you to the corn maze itself?
Well, I think it was the combination of having the land and wanting to do a little something than my regular job that I had. And my job that I worked at involved computer drafting, CAD work, and surveying. So I figured I could use some of that for designing the corn maze and then laying it out in the field and cutting it out. Yeah. And so that certainly made it easier to get started.
But so there wasn't anything in particular that drew you to it as far as being like an inciting moment. It was just, you have this land. What can I do with this land? Hey, I think I'll build a corn maze.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was.
That's what it was. And why pumpkins?
Well, because of the time of year that the corn maze is on, the pumpkins just seem like a natural fit. Yeah. And like I say, that's expanded immensely over the years.
Yeah, exponentially for sure. And you have so many different kinds of pumpkins as well. Have you seen a difference in the practice of farming compared to when you started in 2020 or even previous years? How are you able to sustain the land?
Well, there was many other family farms out in this area and all over the world, I guess, back when I was a kid. The thing was, there were 6 of us kids, and we all got paid $3.50 a day. That was 3 meals and half a bed. So labor was reasonable back then. Now you have a hard time, even at minimum wage, trying to get somebody to come and weed or help with harvesting. So the trend has been on until the last few years. There's a few big, say, potato farms on Vancouver Island. The amount of dairy farms has gone from hundreds down to just a few.
Yeah.
And you can call them industrial farms if you want, but I mean that's the only thing that's turning out cheap chicken wings and milk. But what's happening in the last few years, I think a lot of smaller operations are starting with people growing organic vegetables or just growing vegetables or having a few chickens. So I think there's no such thing as too big or too small as far as people producing some food.
Yeah, yeah. And so the sustainability really is about just refreshing and change. Do you change the crops regularly, recognizing they're all pumpkins, but are there different forms of the way that the pumpkin grows that help to keep the land in place? Or
Well,
how do you manage that crop?
we're not organic, and the only thing that we do use is chemical fertilizer, and we just can't we can't get enough organic manure for the size of our operation. Now the
Yeah,
corn maze, they say, well, you can't grow corn in the same land, you know, year after year. Well, this is the 20th year, obviously that's growing exactly the same place.
yeah.
So we do, you know, put fertilizer on at about 300 pounds per acre. And in this case here, unlike farms that go out for silage for cattle or dairy farmers, all of our stocks get tilled back in. So the crop at the end of the year stays there. Then in the wintertime, trumpeter swans and ducks and stuff, the field beside it floods, that pumpkin field. So they land there and then they start ripping the corn cobs apart. And by spring, there's usually not a kernel of corn to be found, and then the stalks get tilled in. So I think that
Wow.
helped.
I didn't realize that the birds came and that flooded, and so that's where the rest of the seed would go from the corn, from the
Yeah.
cobs themselves.
So the other thing we have to do is if it doesn't snow or the stalks don't get knocked down, we would maybe drive over it in January or February just to flatten it so that the stalks start breaking down so that they can be tilled in. So I think that probably helps the soil when we do that.
Yeah, for sure. I would imagine, and I would imagine the organicness coming from the birds as well probably helps keep that soil very uh, pungent for new seed. I would imagine.
I think so. I mean, when my father was first there, he said you could plow all day and not see a worm anywhere, but now there's worm castings all over the place. So I mean, I would think the soil's getting better.
Do you find the process of getting ready for planting to be a rather difficult time, or is it just over the years you've gathered the equipment to make it a little bit easier? Talk to us a little bit about that whole process from beginning.
Well, we've had problems with planting the pumpkins. We used to plant them directly into the ground, and 98 or 99% would sprout. But
Yeah.
some years ago, small mice or voles or something could tell exactly where the seeds are. They dig a little hole, pull the seed out, eat the
Oh, the
inside,
little buggers.
leave the shell there. Then we'd replant. Same thing would happen. We tried putting flower pots over top of the seeds, and they would burrow underneath. So what we do now is we plant the seeds one at a time in peat pellets in the greenhouse. And then when they're sprouted up with a couple leaves, we transplant them out in the field.
Wow.
So that certainly created some extra work because we plant about 15,000 each year.
Wow.
But I
Are
do
they
get
hand
help.
planted then now? Then you can't mechanically plant pea pods.
Well, no, we hand plant them now, thanks to a crew from the Nanaimo First Nations that helps me out with that. Very good guys and their wives. So that
Isn't
creates
fantastic? That's a great partnership.
extra work. The corn maze, ever since the first year, I had a dairy farmer friend that would plant it for me, and he had a 6-row corn planter. So we just planted it in 2 different directions to get the corn thicker. So then about 3 years ago, I bought my own corn planter, and it's just a 4-row planter. So it takes a little bit longer, but I can plant it in not too many hours. And then I don't have to pay him, and I don't have to, if he's busy doing something, I don't have to wait.
Yeah.
So I haven't planted yet. If you look, most of all the dairy farmers would have planted their corn some time ago because they want to harvest as soon as they can. But
Sure.
we want our corn to be green in October, so we plant it late so that
So that comes up a little bit later for the maize itself.
Yeah.
And in speaking to that, I'm curious about sort of, I've seen where there are 2 or 3 crops that come out of corn plantations, right? They sort of pull that first draft off and sell, or the early corn, and then further corn keeps coming. How how many thousands of pounds do you get off of the ears you plant, or the stalks that you plant? And how often do you harvest them?
Well, the corn maize doesn't get harvested at all, and that corn is, we call it silage corn or cow corn. Now I've got 2 brothers and a sister that grow vegetables and sweet corn. So what my brother does is he plants a certain amount of rows, a certain area once a week, starting by May 1st, and then he plants right to the middle of July. And so if it doesn't freeze, there would be sweet corn available from when the first corn is ready until Halloween. But usually, it freezes once before that, or the field floods or something.
Yeah, and then once that happens, the corn itself is no longer any good either, right? Or
Yeah, it doesn't taste good and soon goes. If it just freezes the leaves, it's not too bad for a week or so, but if it freezes hard, that's the end of it.
that's the end of it. It gets very woody and bristly. So, but you mentioned that the corn that you plant is feed corn.
Yeah.
So for feed corn, you don't harvest it at all. You leave it up the whole time, and that feed corn goes back in the ground, and the birds eat all of the feed corn. Or do you take some of that corn and use it for the animals that you have? Like, I mean, you don't have as I recall from last year anyway, you have a few goats, you have some chickens, you have some pigs, but you don't have like a huge farm, so to speak, with a lot of animals, unless that's changed.
No, and unlike most, silage corn that's growing,
Yeah.
The farmers would come through and cut it, and it's ground up and made into silage. So they put it in a pit or a silo.
Yeah.
So we don't touch ours at all. Like I say, at the end of the year, it just sits there when we close on Halloween, and then, like I say, when it floods in a month later or so, well, then the trumpeter swans start coming back, and in that flooded field, we can get sometimes 300-400 trumpeter swans land there.
Wow.
And they walk across, and they're tall enough to start ripping the corn down, and then the ducks get in there.
Yeah. But I actually have never seen the trumpeter swan. Are you open during that time for people to see the swans, or no?
No, and we have toyed with the idea of sort of wildlife viewing, but having such a mud hole by that time of year.
Yeah, I would imagine even taking the tractor would be challenging, but
yeah, if you could get, and if you drive the tractor, they fly away. So if you could get back and be up on the little platform or tower, it would be ideal for taking pictures and seeing them, but pretty cold.
yeah, that's very true. It is cold, but I like I said, the beauty of it all is the swans know where to come.
Yeah.
So it's a holiday destination for them. They're untethered. They have food all year until spring comes around and you start again. I'd like to be a swan. That might not be a bad life, eh?
Well, it does run out the feed. They rip it down, and then by, I don't know, February, probably the end of February, that everything's gone. And so these ones would probably go to the estuary of Nanaimo River, or you see the dairy farmers' fields. They land on the grass and eat the grass.
So they have quite a diverse palate.
Yeah, to keep them going. But they've increased. I remember in the early 70s, there'd be 1 or 2 pairs would migrate and land down this way. But now there's thousands on the island.
Well, 2 swans who tell 2 swans who tell 2 more and 2 more, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
In regard to the pumpkins, you said that you have, how many acres did you say of pumpkins that you produce?
Well, I think it's around 7 or 8 acres that we plant right now.
So that's significant. That's a large amount. And how many hundreds of pounds do you?
Well, don't know. We sell them by sort of size, so we don't know the poundage that we get.
Do you sell them to local community as well, or at the farmers market, or do you just sell them on site?
Well, excuse me, my brothers and sister go to farmers markets, and sometimes they take some of the little specialty pumpkins to sell, ornamental ones to sell at the markets.
Yeah.
Mainly, they're just sold there, and we do supply some if a charitable organization is having a fundraiser, we'll, donate some pumpkins to that cause. So there's quite a few in Nanaimo and down Duncan that we do that to supply pumpkins to.
Yeah. How many different kinds of pumpkins do you plant?
Well, I think this year it's just about 40 different types between the white ones and the different sizes and ornamental type ones. And
Yeah.
there's one this year they call it midnight. It's supposed to be almost black looking, but I guess it's a really dark green when it's ready. So we'll
Oh
have
my
to see.
goodness. That sounds interesting. I can't wait to see that this year for sure. I'll be looking for them. I'm curious about pumpkins. I took up canning a couple of years ago, and don't get me wrong, I'm not I'm not good at it, but I was very delighted at the fact that I bought pumpkins from your farm. Don't remember which ones I bought, be honest with you. I don't know what the names were, but when I canned them up, I first baked them and then I canned them after they were baked, and they were stunning. They were so delicious. I had them all year, loved them, loved them, loved you. But this year I didn't buy pumpkins from you, my regret, because Save on Foods had them on sale for next to nothing. And so I thought, well, I was having so much fun with the pumpkin canning last year, I'll do the same this year. And they were awful. Their flavor wasn't sweet. They were not good pumpkins. Why do they look the same? Why do they taste so different?
Well, there's even the orange pumpkins, there's several varieties that are specifically for pies, and I don't know what's probably the not stringy, I guess. There's one small sugar and winter luxury is another one, and then some of the other ones are very thick rinds on them, I guess you would call it.
Mhm.
Porcelain doll and some of those that are very good for pies and that sort of stuff and just taste better. So I think some of the orange ones, the bigger ones, they're just they're all hybrids that have been crossed with something to get the bigger
Yeah.
size or shape or the color, and they just don't taste very good. So
I won't do it again, I promise you.
yeah, and we did get a lady that has a restaurant in Ladysmith, Rita's Kitchen, Rita's Apron. She got a whole bunch last year of the ones that we said they might have had a rotten spot or whatever, but she said last week that she just used up the last ones. They use them for their pumpkin muffins and everything else. Because like I say, if you freeze the pulp, it should be good for the whole year.
I find for myself, I like to have it as a side dish like potatoes, right? Instead of potatoes, I prefer pumpkin. I like potatoes as well, don't get me wrong, but my preference is to have that squash flavor. And also my dogs love it. And so I often will prepare their meal. And especially if they've got an upset stomach, pumpkin for dogs is very, very good. And so they tend to be more on the stringy side. They tend to be more of a squashy kind of a pumpkin. Um, I think that more people should eat pumpkin as a side dish. How tired of it are you? Is it on your side plate a lot? Does your wife cook you a fair amount of pumpkin come season, or?
Not at all. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, there you
So,
go.
and we don't even, we would buy a pumpkin pie if we have one.
Yeah, isn't that funny that it's like the guy who runs a mechanic shop never fixes his own car.
Yeah, that's about like it. And my brothers and sister, they grow 40 or 50 kinds of squash, and as you might know, there's so many different flavors and textures in the squash that we certainly eat those, but not so much on the pumpkins. But you get out there and advertise them for eating, and we'll see what we can do.
Hey, you betcha. I'll be sure to do that. Absolutely. Hey, listen, this is a perfect segue. Listen, everybody, if you have just tuned in, you're listening to CHLY on 101.7 FM. Thank you for tuning in today. My guest is Murry McNab from McNab's Corn Maids, and we're talking everything corn and pumpkins. Your farm has expanded, it's changed, it's grown, and it's done some different things over the years. And I know we talked at the top of the hour a little bit about COVID and how that was different. How did you manage your way through it? How did your farm succeed when so many other organizations unfortunately fell to COVID.
Yeah, well, I guess ours, fortunately, when it started up, the vegetable side of it, the vegetable stand, the roadside stand is just kind of self-serve. So I mean, it's up to the people to kind of distance themselves. We were worried about and had problems with the hay rides and the fact that towards the end we said you had to have a mask on the hay ride, and we tried to keep the distancing on the hay ride. What we did was for the admission tickets is we sold them online through a company in Alberta, and they could keep track of how many tickets per hour were sold. We sold a few more at the front counter, but when it was too many people, we would close the gate.
Yeah.
Well, that's where it came to problems on a couple of days, because then people were lined up down the side of the road.
Yeah.
And then somebody, instead of alerting us to the problem, they phoned the police and said that the people beside the road weren't social distancing. So
Oh no.
next thing you know, the police are there. So then we had to have somebody to sort of, and that was only a couple of days, couple of weekends at the busiest time.
Yeah.
So and then I think at times there were complaints about too many people on the hayride. We were trying to get people to wear masks, or so, and a lot more people maybe just walk back from the pumpkin patch. So it was less people, I believe, than the year before. Pumpkin sales were up, and I think people were just desperate for something to do outside.
Yeah, for sure.
Not as bad as they are now, but it was starting to get a bit silly at that time of year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we sort of got through that, and it's looking like this year should be pretty much back to normal, we hope.
Do you think you'll continue though? I mean, I think so many organizations have taken the learnings from, this crisis, for lack of better words, and kept some of the things that have happened in place moving forward. Do you think that there'll be any of the practices that you put in place will remain moving forward, or will you revert back to previous ways of doing business?
Well, it'll just depend on what the public health
Of course,
officials
yeah.
say. Whether we used to have the 4 hole punches in the corn maze, for to punch your card when you found the stations. We didn't have those last year, and when we have an entrance and exits from the little sales building and all that, and social distancing on the hayride, that'll all depend on what the public health officials say. It looks like, and especially with it being an outside venue, and it's not like being on a tour bus, so the hayride wagon's wide open. So
yeah, for sure.
I don't think it's going to be a problem, but we'll have to go by whatever the public health officials say.
Well, the good news is at the time of this taping, the public health is opening things up quite significantly. As of the 15th of June, there should be some major changes that are coming to help support community in every way, and to open things up again. Although I'm sure that there's still going to be a number of issues in place to keep public safety at the top of mind. Certainly this is not over yet. I have to tell you, I loved the on-ticket process. I used it last year because I have an 86-year-old mother-in-law, and she hadn't been on a hayride since she was a young girl, and so it was a treat for her to come. And she's very youthful. I mean, she's definitely, she's a youthful chick. And so she had so much fun. She wanted to explore every part of the corn maze, every part of the pumpkin patch. We had just the most delightful day, but it was wonderful to be able to make the reservation, to have a specific time, to know that once we came through the gates, there was protocol in place. It was actually delivered, in my opinion, extremely well, particularly for the older adult. And so I wanted to compliment you on that, because I felt that it was very age friendly. Were you thinking about older adults at the time when you started creating some of the ways of doing your business, or was it just a matter of it being coincidentally fabulous?
Well, not that particular thing. We knew we had to do something, and we've signed on with that company for 2 years. It just means that if we're going to do online stuff, we would use them. The only thing is we took a hit on that for whatever 6% or whatever they charge. We didn't add that to the tickets last year. So I think we'll take a lesson from BC Ferries in that if you want to have a reservation, you'll pay the entrance fee plus whatever that company is charging. So those tickets might be 6% more.
Yeah.
And then they had a credit card charge. So we'll probably this year pass that on. I would like to get a company from local and in Nanaimo for the year after that. And I think it's not a bad idea, like I say, to have the reservation thing, but there'd be a small premium for that.
Yeah.
And then as far as we've always had elderly visitors with some of the seniors homes and their care homes in Nanaimo, bringing people out. Quite a few handicap groups and societies come out, and we give people a break and on the price, and we try and do our best to get wheelchairs onto the hayride if we can, and just take less people. So we've done our best, and then of course when it gets muddy, we always get people asking why we don't pave the trail. So I'm not sure what they're thinking about, because it'd be hard on the equipment. But so it's unfortunate when it does get muddy, but we try and keep it.
It's part of the nature of what it is you're doing. This is an active working farm.
Yeah.
Right.
So we do what we can for elderly people and for people with disabilities.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I know for certain, as I said, in her case, she absolutely loved it. She had, she has a bit of a problem with one of her knees. And so every now and then it gives out a bit and gives her a bit of trouble. And so to be able to go on the hayride and to be able to still participate, she was particularly, we happened to be there at the time when your very large sow had piglets. And so she was not that big of a sow in all fairness, but she's a beauty. And so we had quite a bit of fun just sort of sticking our head open into the corral to have a little peek at the babies. And I think honestly, that was probably more my favorite part than hers, but it was awfully close to hers. If it wasn't, it would be, have you thought about ever having more of a, just for the idea of, for the younger set, and for us older folks as well, to have more of a touchy-feely farm hands-on kind of stuff? Or is it really not good for the animals at the end of the day to have that kind of?
Well, it comes down to more of, excuse me, a liability issue if you're going to have an actual petting zoo where kids are in amongst the animals. And you certainly have to have a few more staff members just to sort of take care of that. So I think we're going to leave it where that, at times when someone's there, people or kids can feed the animals, but once again, you got to have someone there. Otherwise, if you leave a big bucket of corn there, it all gets thrown in.
Yeah, pigs, unfortunately, and animals aren't necessarily good at self-regulating. So completely understandable as that goes, for sure, not to worry. And for those of you who just tuned in, this is a Zoom taping. So we may be interrupted by phones ringing and by dogs barking and chimes chiming and things are singing and, going on in the background. Meanwhile, you have tuned into CHOY 101.7 FM. I'm Kathy Holmes. I'm your host on Act 3. And our guest today is Murry McNab. At this time of the program, I usually tell everybody to go grab a piece of paper and a pen because they're going to want to get some information about how they can come and visit you when the doors are open again for the season. Do you have, Murry, a season opening date, or is it usually in the fall? Or because we're still early in the season, I would imagine that corn's not that tall yet.
Oh no, the seed's still in bags, so that's not like maize just yet. I hope we get it planted later this week because we're just finishing up planting the pumpkins. Like I say, we plant it late so that it stays green. So we usually aim for the end of August, but sometimes there's things come up, and the problem with August is it's usually so hot that in the corn maze, the trail stuff, it's stifling. So it's more of a fall thing, September, October. Unfortunately, it gets really busy sort of the Thanksgiving weekend on. That's we're selling pumpkins as well. So we're trying to spread it out a little bit into some, more people come in September. And unfortunately, it's a bit of a, victim of his own success, and the fact that, they want us to advertise on this and that, and we really have too many people at some days, and parking is made as seen as a problem. And
Yeah, you had to park across the street last year, and it wasn't easily visible at all.
yeah, and then we got people that park by the road, and their
Yeah.
vehicles hanging out on the road, and
Yeah.
locals understandably get upset with that.
But at the end of the day, you do your very best. And I won't deny, I thought that the organizational structure, everything about the place was just marvelous. So it is an adventure. It is, you have to expect that this is a family. It's a family business, created for us to enjoy themselves, picking out their pumpkins in the autumn, most beautiful season of the year, to wander around and just be part of it. And so, nothing is perfect. You guys have been around for 20 years. There's no such, thing. You never know what's going to happen with the weather or with the season, or this is, you're sort of you're at the mercy of whatever happens in that day, aren't you?
Yes. And
so why your brothers and sisters have all come together? Are some of you better at this than others in the farming component? Like, are some of you more engaged, or like, how does that work working with your siblings?
Well, we're two separate entities. I run the corn maze and the pumpkin patch. Two siblings, one lives on the farm and doesn't have anything to do with the vegetables. And a sister lives in Ladysmith and doesn't really have much to do with it. So I have two brothers and a sister that take care of the vegetables and the sweet corn.
Yeah.
And the whole family, we're still speaking to each other most days. And
That's good.
The good thing about the corn maze is it's allowed me to buy tractors and some equipment, which then the vegetable people can use. They just pay me a certain amount per hour for using the tractors.
Oh, that's great.
So then the equipment's there when they need it, and they're growing a lot of good food and going to the farmers markets. Most of it gets sold at the roadside stand.
Yeah.
And corn's been popular sweet corn since my dad started growing back in the 60s sometime.
Yeah. So did you take after your dad then when you thought about putting this together? Were you sort of leaning into some of your dad's teachings, or?
Well, unfortunately or fortunately, every one of us found a real job because, after that many years of farming for $3.50 a day,
Yeah.
even a minimum wage somewhere else was good.
Yeah.
My dad at the end, unfortunately, he was involved in an accident with a tractor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Probably about 1982, and he passed away in 88. But towards the end, he was really trying to do something about maybe having kids come to the farm and learn something. And so I think he'd be quite pleased with people coming there. I know it's some kids have got no idea where corn and they can walk by and see where carrots and beets come from. So, and they can buy stuff at the stand, and I must say that the vegetables that they sell at the stand are far superior than what you get at the grocery stores most times.
Yeah.
They're just fresh and taste good.
Yeah.
So I think he'd be pleased with that. But like I say, everybody had brother that worked in forestry and now has a little construction company. Two brothers were fallers and then have a little construction company. Sister was a nurse. Another sister worked for an eye doctor specialist, and I worked for a mining company and then two different engineering companies in Nanaimo and the municipality of North Cowichan. And so in some of the time when I started the maze, I was doing both and doing some of the vegetables, but I should have quit earlier on the real jobs because there's good money to be made here, and you don't have to listen to all the drivel that you might at a real job.
I understand what you're saying. So do you feel that farming's in your blood then? Kind of, sort of, maybe?
No, I guess so. I
as
like
much as you're resisting that 3.5, it seems to be there, right?
Yeah, I suspect with good old grandpa and my parents came from Ontario, that our generation of McNabs were probably the first one that ever got jobs off the farm. And, you know, maybe
Yeah.
I went to BCIT, and my older brother went to BCIT as well. Sister got a degree in nursing. But otherwise, I think, you know, they were generations of farmers in Ontario. And old grandpa used to say that we were the 9th or 10th generation in Canada. So they've been around for a while in Canada. But yeah, I certainly like do it. I don't mind it. It's just nice to get up early in the morning and go do something and watch stuff grow. So I'm glad
What
to do
time
that.
does your day start? Murray, what time does your day start when it comes to farming?
Well, I get up at 5 like this morning, and I go to Ladysmith and get some fuel for the tractors, and then I've got no irrigation happening right now because it just rained, but use this irrigation to turn on and feed a few animals up there, and then come back and have breakfast and a coffee.
Is there new babies on the way? Are any of your animals ready to give birth, or has that all been done for the season? Have you any new babies on the way?
No, well, we have most of the animals there are freebies that we get.
Oh,
from,
really?
people that looking to, you know, get rid of them. And so the little pigs, unfortunately, but what you saw there is the pig that was in the one pen is a male, and the little pigs, we buy some little pigs every in August, and that's what we have. And you know, little pigs become big pigs, but nobody wants to hear about that. So
No, so they become supper.
yes, so we've got some little wiener pigs ordered for this year, and then unfortunately you have one emu there, and
yes, the emu. Yes, I remember the emu.
but there's only one, so it must be a male because he was trying to mate with the biggest goat this spring. And then for the last 2 months, and it's been 2 months now, he's been sitting on a pile of rocks waiting for them to hatch because the male emus sit on the eggs. And I did see him get up the other day and have a bit of food, but he's still sitting there waiting for these rocks to hatch. So I don't know
Oh my.
what we're going to do. They're not very smart.
No, but they're big. They are.
Yeah.
I'll never forget my son when he was a wee little lad, and it wasn't at McNab's, unfortunately, but rather my family has some property in Alberta, and across the street from our land there is a emu farm. And so my Uncle James was taking Dakota to go and look at the emus, and he kept saying, "I don't see him." He was little tyke, right? "I don't see him. I don't see him." And his Uncle James says, "Look up, look all the way up." And his little face just went, you know, of course, because he didn't realize how large they are. Yeah. Yeah. They're wonderful creatures though. If you can have a pair of them, it would be delightful. So have you thought about getting a female? You did say you didn't buy any of them. They come to you, but.
Well, and it's a sad story, I guess. We had 5 originally, came to us sort of the size of chickens. From a fella got them from over on Salt Spring Island. He lived beside a person that had a breeding pair. So once they were 3 years old, they start laying eggs. So the ones that were left, they laid some eggs, and the male sat on them. And then when they hatched, unfortunately, the first 3, all we could figure out is that the mom must have killed them. And so we separated her, and 3 more hatched. But they only got up to, I'll say, teenage size, and they seem to have gotten some sort of a, you know, neurological brain disease or something, and we lost all 3 of them. So then, unfortunately, we got out, and 2 got hit on the road, and which must have been kind of a surprise for the driver. 1 escaped and was at a neighbor's house, and we just couldn't get it back, and they kicked forward, and the conservation officer was there. Unfortunately, he had to put the emu down.
Oh no.
Another was at another neighbor's property and was walking up and down the fence line. So my 3 brothers went to catch it. When they, you know, sort of tackled it, 1 went to get some rope to tie its legs, and unfortunately had a heart attack. So that was the end of it.
Oh my goodness.
They do make good
I thought they were
sausage.
little scrappers. I thought if you went to try and get the Murray, like they want to take you out. Like
Oh, yeah,
emus are
yeah.
not easy to catch at
No.
the best of times.
And they kick forward, their knees hinge the opposite way, and that's how one fellow there got his pants ripped because they got these, they look like dinosaur
Yeah.
feet on them. And that's how ostriches could rip it wide open because they kick forward. So yes, it would be nice to get another one if we could find a female, and we'll look into it because this poor guy is obviously confused with his dogs.
Oh, and he's probably very lonely too. I mean,
Yeah,
I know he was evasive when I was visiting. He came out. We saw
yeah,
it. My mother-in-law and I just were in gobsmacked enjoying him, but he didn't stay out for too terribly long. He was out for a bit. I felt that I was quite lucky that he was, showing himself.
yeah.
I don't want to tell my mother-in-law that those little piglets are gone, but thanks for the heads up on that, so we don't go looking for them next year in the fall.
Well, they'll be
But
back, but
it's
it's
part of the farm, though. It's part of,
unfortunately, yeah, I don't know what,
yeah.
there's not some farm somewhere with thousands of big pigs that live in there till they die.
Oh, I know. Let's be realistic. You go to the grocery store, you see them in the market. It's got to happen from somewhere. It really does. Do you actually do the harvesting, for lack of better words, of the meat, or do you kill the pigs?
No,
Or
well, I guess you are allowed now, and that's another thing that the federal government has screwed up completely is the slaughterhouses.
right?
There's the one that was locally just south of Nanaimo has closed.
Yeah.
So we either have to take the animals to Gunter Brothers up north of Courtney, or there's a place in Glenora, which Bronze Meats, which unfortunately, if I could get a plug in, the man's a crook. And
Oh, I'm sorry.
so the only other places is down in Machosen. So it's
Yeah.
it's quite a drive to take your
Why did
animals.
they change that? I recall there, when I lived on the mainland, there's a few farms in the Coquitlam area, in the backwoods of Coquitlam.
Yeah.
And there was a farm, I mean, in all fairness, I don't know whether or not it was a working slaughterhouse, but I visited it while I was on the farm, and it appeared to me to be, it had a feel of its own. I mean, slaughterhouses do, they just have
Yeah.
a very unusual feel. But it appeared to still be running. Now, having said that, in all fairness, I'm sure that was 20 years or 25 years ago anyway.
Yeah.
And why did they change it? When did they change it?
Well, it was I don't know how many years ago it started, but it was a safety thing to save us all. And what they have to have is there's a federal inspector that's at the slaughterhouse when each animal is killed. And so the slaughterhouse has to have a separate little room for the inspector. I think he's got to have his own washroom and all that. So now that they would, maybe kill pigs on a certain day and cattle on another day. So that created a lot of extra expense. So their idea was that, and they couldn't prove it anywhere, that anyone got sick from these little local slaughterhouses like you would have seen.
Yeah.
When there's a mass contamination, it usually comes from Maple Leaf Foods in the prairie someplace where something goes wrong, and then
A large facility for sure.
And so now, there's only one place on Vancouver Island to get chickens processed. And now that they've got quite a few chicken farms again on the island, they're plugged up and there's no place to take your, or very few places to take your 30 chickens or 50 chickens. So they're loosening up the rules a little bit on that. It's another thing by the government that was a knee-jerk reaction, much like the water situation when there was the drunken brothers at Walkerton that caused that problem there. Well, every little community is cost millions of dollars to upgrade their water systems. Very few of them had any troubles, but it's the rules now.
I know that they've been very strict over the years. I recall I used to have a family farm, very small acreage in Maple Ridge. And I'm sure you recall the avian flu when it hit.
Yes.
My neighbors on both sides I had 24 birds, 25 birds on average. But my neighbors up the road had several hundred because, of course, they were breeding the eggs for commercial use. I mean, local in the sense of it, they went to the farmers
Yeah.
markets and things like this, but nonetheless, it was not, huge organization to produce thousands and thousands of eggs and hens. Rather, when avian flu came, of course, everything was killed, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, my neighbors on both sides, they had 100, 150 birds. Both of them lost all of their hens, lost all of their birds, period. I only had a few. And so either mine were really quiet and kept back. They didn't come and get my birds. Let's just put it that way. They didn't come and I was grateful because I knew my birds were perfectly fine. In fact, I don't think anybody had avian flu anywhere near my area. It's sort of
Yeah.
that mad cow disease. When that happened, they killed thousands and thousands of cattle.
Yeah.
And there was back east where the mad cow was. It wasn't even in our communities. And
Yeah.
so, how do you feel about those practices when they come and they mass take?
Yeah, I've never been involved in the avian flu, but I just say this thing with the slaughterhouses has really affected, because there's no such thing as too small. If a
Yeah.
person has half an acre and they want to have, buy a couple of steers and raise them up and, slaughter them from either themselves and maybe sell half to the neighbor, that's all part of the food supply and food security. And the federal government is just, putting all sorts of roadblocks in the way of small producers like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
understand what you're saying. Yeah.
and I don't know, and then they certainly had it up in the interior, and it could happen here is when they have these wildfires. Um, everybody's supposed to leave. Well, they can't make you leave, but if they do leave, they can stop you from coming back. And so ranchers and stuff there had left to get, say, more diesel for their generators, and they couldn't get back in, and it was almost shot fired, and their livelihood was certainly in danger. So there should be some thought given to that, because it could be a wildfire, whatever happened any dry summer could happen around here.
Yeah, I certainly a couple of years ago we had a lot of fires. Thankfully, not so bad last year. However, this year is supposed to be another very hot year. So my prayer is that no one has to lose their livelihood to the wildfire or to disease or to any other part of life on the land, for lack of better words, right? So what do you, and when you think about as every year approaches and it comes closer to the time when you're opening up your doors, what's your favorite part of opening up the maze? And like, do you have a favorite part? It's been 20 years now. What do you love about this?
Well, I think it's probably the little kids that come to the pumpkin patch, really. Parents bring them when they're 2, 3 months old and prop them up by a pumpkin to get a picture. And then when they get a little bit bigger and they're flopping around the mud or stumbling around the vines and stuff, that's just good fun. And one of my friends commented some years ago, he was amazed that the people sort of coming out of the maze, the majority seem to be smiling and happy. And I don't know what it is, about wandering around a field that people like. And it's not a bad setting. Of course, we didn't think much of it when we were kids. Like I say, we were, looking down, pulling weeds or picking rocks, but, it's got the sort of the forest around and not too many houses nearby. So we're fortunate that way. But it's sort of the pumpkins and the little kids when they get to maybe feed the emu or feed the goats or something. That's what I like.
Yeah, it is wonderful to see that the kids open up their eyes wide. Do you have your own kids and your own grandchildren that, if I may ask, that are delighted by this process, or is it like old hat for them now?
Well, unfortunately, I had a daughter who passed away at just before 15, and my
Sorry.
son lives up in the Northwest Territories, and him and his wife have 2 children, 7 and 4. So unfortunately, we don't. With this COVID, we haven't seen them.
Yeah.
And we got up there a couple of times, and they're down this way, but not near as nice if they're around. And actually, my son ran the corn maze in 2009, I believe, pretty much by himself. So it's hard to say what the future holds. My wife keeps asking when we're gonna, maybe retire or leave that alone, but I just got a new hip a couple months ago, and I should be good for a while. So
There you go. How did you do with it? I knew that you were having a hip replacement. You and I had a conversation before, but I'm curious, how has it held up? Like, was it painful for you to have her done, or?
no, the immediate thing is the relief for the
Yeah.
on from the, the ball or whatever, the joint that was arthritis, whatever's in it.
Yeah.
So no, the pain from the surgery goes away pretty quickly, and I still take the odd Tylenol, but like I say, it's been 8 weeks, and you're supposed to be, good to go at 12 weeks. But yeah, I'm very pleased with it.
Oh, I'm really glad for you. Just the one hip, or do you have to have another one,
No,
the other one done, or you're
no,
good to go?
the other one's good, and I think this probably has some damage in a car accident back in 1979, and even then they said, "Oh, you're going to have arthritis in that hip." So I don't know what they knew, but no, the other one's good. So hopefully we're
Great.
good for a while.
I'm glad to hear that, because I know that our community really loves coming to the pumpkin patch, and you guys have to keep on doing what it is you're doing so well. Can you tell our audience how they can reach you? They've gone to grab their paper and a pen. We told them to do that about a half an hour ago, so they should be ready to write.
Well, we have a website at mcnabscorn.com, and email is mcnabscornmaze@gmail.com. And when we're open in the summer for about 6 months, the phone is active down there, and I try and catch the messages. 250-245-Satan 0666.
Oh, Satan 0666. I love it. That's hilarious. How does that relate to the pumpkin patch and the corn maze?
Don't know, but it was the number was available, and I liked it. So
It's a great number. It's an easy one to remember for sure. Do you have Facebook presence and Instagram and all that stuff as well?
well, not Instagram. I am on Facebook, babbling away at causing trouble. I guess I should get on Instagram and Twitter, but it just takes so much time.
I understand. Facebook, is often enough, and so is the website as well. And people can make reservations for this year when you open up in the fall.
Yeah.
We're at the time of the program, my favorite part of the program, where I ask all of my guests, by the way, not to throw you under the bus or anything like that. I promise never to do that. But what I love to get is the insight and the wisdom that comes behind all things, right? So if you were to imbibe something on our audience, okay, like a teaching, a life lesson from these experiences that you've had with McNab and working the farm and the family and all of the big stuff, what would you want people to know?
Well, I guess when if you encounter some adversity, as I did in 1979, there were a motor vehicle accident, broke my back and both my legs, and was in a hospital and rehab for just about a year. You got to sort of carry on and do what you can. And I think the other thing is that a lot of people are missing out on is nature. And with this COVID times has been especially bad, I believe, that people just need to get out amongst the trees or vegetables, whatever it is, in the garden, and just get out and enjoy life. So I've struggled myself with depression because of several different things, and even been zapped, sort of like on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I'm as good as gold now. But I think nature and some of those things are good for you, and there's an incredible feeling if you can give something back to the community. Up until last year, we had fundraisers every weekend where the local schools would, put on a bake sale or selling hot dogs or whatever, and they would the pack would make money. Or other organizations that you can donate something to, or because the corn maze has done very well, we can donate money to different charities. So that's that I believe can't be overstated. It gives you a good feeling we can help somebody else out. And I think some of those lessons are learned from your parents, very young. I can remember good old dad when they, had nothing themselves. He would, slip people a couple extra corn cobs or whatever when you could see they had a big family. So I think that's a big thing. It's just if you can give something back.
There's a reason you're a legend in this town, Mr. McNab, a reason you're a legend. Thank you for bringing yourself to this program today and for sharing your wisdom with all of us. And thanks for making the fall the best time of year for everybody who lives in this town and for your family as well. Thank you for all that you do for all of us. You have been listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7. Murry McNab has been the guest. Thanks, Murry. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
It was a real
Have a good day.
privilege. Thank you. You too. Take good care and stay well. And ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you tune in to Act 3 on Spotlight TV, on Shaw Spotlight, I should say. Our second episode of Act 3 television is airing very, very soon, so keep your eye out. It's on there. And always, please check back on our YouTube station. Make sure that you subscribe and like so that we can get these incredible interviews out for all of you to enjoy. Thank you, Murry. Have a great day, everybody. Bye for now.